Alex Butler sat in the small, dimly lit living room, his gaze fixed on the screen in front of him. The weight of the world pressed down on him, a burden he would never share with anyone. He had come to Earth in secret, an alien in every sense of the word. The repercussions of discovery were far too daunting to face. His homeworld lost. He one of the few survivors. But here, in this world of humans, he had found a life. A home. His fingers brushed the fusion-powered device on the coffee table, a symbol of his wealth and his plan. A genius mind had built the first fusion battery, and in time, Alex had perfected it. These tiny, efficient power sources now powered everything. They cooked food, powered cars, heated homes. Even the simplest bicycles ran on the very energy he had brought to Earth. "How do you do it?" Sakura's voice broke through his thoughts. She was sitting beside him on the couch, her hand resting on his. "How can you just sit here when the world is falling apart?" Alex didn't move, his gaze still fixed on the device. There was a stillness to him, an almost unnatural quiet. He could feel Sakura's eyes on him, but the question hung in the air, unanswered. He had never known how to respond to her. The calm she saw in him wasn't real. It was motionless resignation, an inability to act in the face of the catastrophe unfolding around them. Sakura had always been the one to push forward, her strength in moments of chaos, while he had grown used to standing still, observing the devastation as it swept through the world. He could not fix it, and he could not explain that to her. "I don't know," Alex whispered, finally lifting his gaze to meet hers. "I wish I could fix it all." The words felt empty as they left his lips. Deep down, he knew he couldn't. There was nothing he could do to stop it. He had thought he could remain hidden, thought he could live his life quietly, away from the violence, the chaos. But the storm was coming. A storm that no one, not even he, could escape. The news broadcast interrupted their quiet moment. The sound of the anchor's frantic voice filled the room. "We are under attack! An alien force unlike anything we've ever seen has arrived. They have devastated India, struck China, and now they are advancing across the world. Our military stands no chance." Sakura's breath caught in her throat. She stood up, her face pale. "I have to get this out. The world needs to know." "Sakura," Alex said, his voice barely a whisper as he remained seated, rooted to the couch. He didn't have the strength to get up, to move. "You don't have to." She shook her head, her voice firm. "I have to. People need to know what's coming, what's already here." Sakura hurried to the door, grabbing her coat. Alex watched her leave, tears welling up in his eyes. That crazy woman, Alex thought. Crazy humans. But as she disappeared, into the night a thought crossed his mind, a desperate, reckless plan. It was a crazy idea, one that wouldn't have worked on his homeworld, but maybe, just maybe, it could work here. A tiny tweak to the fusion batteries, turning them into hard light emitters. Maybe humans were just crazy enough. He pushed himself to his feet and ran after her, his steps quick and determined. The intensity would drop off fast with range, but humans might make it work. They have to. He caught up to her just before she entered the building. Quickly, he started explaining. Sakura listened intently, her face a mask of focus. After a few words, she dragged him inside, shouting, "New story!" Inside, Alex was a passive observer, watching the chaos unfold as Sakura moved fluidly through the preparations for the rushed live broadcast. She kept everything running smoothly, her calm demeanor a stark contrast to his silent, motionless anxiety. After the broadcast, his heart was heavy. There was no guarantee this would work. But for the first time, he allowed himself to move, his mind racing with possibilities, the weight of the world finally forcing him to take a step forward. The skyline of Tokyo was a wreck. Once glittering skyscrapers were now twisted skeletons of metal and concrete, their forms bent and broken by the relentless onslaught of the machines. Fires blazed across the city, and the air was thick with the ash of destruction. The invaders, cold and unyielding, were unstoppable. Alex stood at the edge of a temple, its traditional wooden structure now scarred by the horrors of war. The small rock garden at its heart, once a place of peace and meditation, had been disrupted. The rocks lay scattered, out of order, symbolizing the chaos that had consumed the world. The temple, too, seemed to mourn, its serenity torn apart by the violence around it. Sakura, standing beside him, was as composed as ever. Once a renowned newsreader, now a vital voice in the resistance, she had been tireless in spreading the word of the weapon Alex had created. And now, despite the carnage around them, she refused to leave his side. "I'm not from this world," Alex said, his voice barely audible over the din of the dying city. Sakura's footsteps faltered as she processed his words, her gaze snapping to his. She had always known there was something different about him, the way he seemed detached from the human world, the subtle hints in his behavior that spoke of a past far beyond anything Earth could offer. But hearing him say it out loud, in the middle of everything that was happening, hit her like a wave. She took a deep breath, the weight of the world pressing in on her. After a moment, she spoke, her voice steady and calm. "I've always known." Alex stared at her, his heart pounding, as if the ground beneath him had shifted. He had feared this moment, the moment when his secret would finally come to light, would unravel everything. But the look in Sakura's eyes was different from what he had anticipated. There was no shock, no fear, just acceptance. "It was your secret," she continued, her voice low. "And I respected that. I never asked." Alex exhaled, the tension in his body releasing like a rope slackening after a long struggle. For the first time in years, he felt the weight of his fears lift, if only a little. The soldiers assembled, their faces weary yet resolute. They too had seen the horrors of war. Many of them had lost loved ones in the first wave. But now they were here, prepared to face the enemy once more, armed with the only weapon that could pierce the invaders' seemingly impenetrable armor. Sakura stepped forward, her hard light sword now activated, the humming blade casting a ghostly glow as it flickered to life. But it was not the hilt she gripped. It was the tsuba, the guard above the hilt. The tsuba, a symbol of her heritage, anchored her to the traditions of the samurai. In the past, the guard was often a piece of intricate artistry representing the warrior's connection to their ancestors. Today, it was her link to that legacy, a fierce declaration of protection for her home, her people. "For outsiders, this is the land of the katana and samurai," Sakura murmured, her eyes fixed on the horizon where the machines marched, oblivious to the human spirit gathering in defiance. "To them, it's a land of duty and honor, but to us, it's our home." Alex exhaled, the tension in his body releasing like a rope slackening after a long struggle. For the first time in years, he felt the weight of his fears lift, if only a little. There had been disbelief. A hard light emitter? Some had jokingly called it a lightsaber or a Jedi sword. But the first test proved that it cut everything. What had once been an innocent invention, a simple fusion battery, could now pierce the invaders' seemingly impenetrable armor. Alex had never imagined his work would carry such weight. But now it was their only hope. The soldiers were a silent sea of resolve, their faces strained but unyielding. Fear flickered in their eyes, but it did not consume them. They all knew the truth. Most would not make it out of this day alive. But none of them faltered. The charge began with a unified roar. The soldiers ran through the wreckage of Tokyo's streets, the light from their emitters cutting through the smoke-filled sky, a fleeting beacon of hope against the overwhelming darkness. They could see the invaders now, towering and relentless, their machines reflecting the dim glow of the hard light. The battle raged on, an unyielding storm of violence and desperation. The machines, relentless and merciless, tore through cities, decimating everything in their path. The world's defenses had crumbled, and humanity was on the brink of annihilation. Alex stood at the heart of the battlefield, watching as the humans fought on. They were outmatched, outgunned, and outnumbered. But they fought like lions, their fury and resolve unmatched. They drew power from deep within the land. The spiritual connection, once dulled by years of TikTok and neon advertisements flashing, from towering buildings, suddenly reformed. The tide of bodies was unrelenting. Wave after wave crashed into the enemy lines until they broke. Alex watched in awe as the humans fought with a strength he had never known, a strength that came from something deeper than technology, deeper than anything his kind had ever understood. They had tapped into something ancient, something powerful, and with that power, they pushed the invaders back. Alex stood at the edge of the battlefield, his heart heavy with the knowledge of what had been lost. The cost had been high, too high, but the storm had passed, the machines were gone, the world was still standing. Sakura and Alex became the faces of the resistance, not just for their role in delivering the weapon that turned the tide against the alien invaders, but for their actions on the battlefield. Among the many moments that defined their legacy, one scene stood out above all others. In a brutal confrontation, Sakura unleashed a ferocious attack on a towering machine, her blade slicing through its metallic leg with a force that left onlookers in awe. The crowd that watched her battle, both live and on countless broadcasts, was transfixed by her power. But Sakura, ever humble, later claimed that the machine was already dead by the time she struck it down. "I just let my rage take over," she would say. But no one believed her. To them, the scene only grew more legendary as they replayed it over and over. An unstoppable force driven by something more than just strategy or skill. It was raw, unbridled fury. But perhaps the most iconic moment came after a frontline soldier handed her a baby, with orders to bring it to safety. At that point, in the battle, Sakura had already proven her prowess on the front lines, but the war had taken its toll. With the battle raging on, another fighter made the practical decision to take her off the field. Sakura cradled the child without hesitation, her warrior's instincts momentarily dulled by the innocence in her arms. Moments later, as she made her way through the battlefield, two damaged machines, still smoking from previous attacks, tried to ambush her. The cameras caught the entire exchange. Without flinching, Sakura turned and dispatched them with a calmness that stunned the witnesses. "It was nothing," she said afterward, brushing off the near-death encounter as if it were an inconvenience. "The baby gave me luck," she shyly joked, a faint smile on her lips. The world, however, did not take it as a joke. It became a defining moment in her rise as a symbol of hope. Soon after, people began to call her Sakura Angel Nakamura, not just for her skill, but for the way she balanced the violence of war with the purity of her actions. "They're calling you an angel," Alex said quietly, not taking his eyes off the screen. Sakura glanced at him, a small, self-conscious smile playing at the corners of her lips. "Why?" she asked. "Because you are," Alex replied, his voice soft, but firm. For a moment, the noise of the broadcast faded away. It was just the two of them, caught in a brief, shared moment of warmth amidst the chaos. But then, the news continued. The tide of humanity, once scattered and unsure, is now a relentless force. The machines have no place to hide. Alex exhaled, slowly, watching as humanity's fury and resolve were broadcasted to the world. They weren't just surviving anymore. A few years later, the UNSS, United Nations spaceship Vengeance, was launched. It was powered by 1,000,000 tiny fusion batteries, the same ones that had powered the hard light swords. Alex smiled. "Nothing holds humans back," Sakura answered. "That's how I got you. Enjoy another amazing story." The alarm startled Enren. It had a mechanical, animalistic howl which hurt her ears. It was so loud that she could feel the deck plates vibrate under her feet, tingling with noise. As she looked around, she could tell that it bothered the humans too. But other than a small flinch when it went off, it seemed to energize them. They all got more focused, more serious, and moved faster. The trip had been a whirlwind of sights, sounds, smells, and other sensations. Enren Kitani, as the ranking officer of the Melateam, the Discoverers, was selected by the captain to go over to the human ship and meet them. The fact that she was part of the secret police, and if she were killed by human treachery, it would not be considered that much of a loss to the crew, was not lost on Ren. But as much as she disliked the taste of that thought, she had to admit it did make sense. She had more training on body language and politics than anyone else aboard. Even if she didn't know the details of the humans' political situation, she probably could see the larger picture easier than anyone. She needn't have worried about any human treachery. They had been more than accommodating to her and her needs, and everyone was fascinated by her presence. She knew that they were merely curious, but their close-set eyes following her as she was given a tour of the ship was unsettling. Menium had been in contact with the humans' own ship AI, called Longview, and between the two of them they had worked out a rough translation of the two sapients' languages. Their language was an unintelligible garble of sounds and phonemes to Ren, but Menium was an excellent translator, and she had managed to understand and be understood. They had invited her to a meal, and while she attended to gathering gladly, she didn't eat anything. Not only was eating unknown food from a new group of sapients she had just met madness, Menium had warned her that some ingredients the humans used was toxic. After the meal, Ren had explained the war with the Zeni, how they were trying to expand their territory, and how, without some help, the war would last for decades at best, and be over quickly with the Galaxy being subjugated by the Zeni at worst. 3 Galaxy border colonies had already been captured, and a dozen deep space stations had been destroyed outright. Almost exactly as she finished explaining the war, the Zeni came through the system gate, and the humans' long-range sensors had detected the missile launches. Ren had warned that they tend to go after ships with their energy weapons after the missile launches, and sure enough, everyone aboard Longview heard the thunderclap report of the energy weapons ablating part of the Starjumper's thick hull. Ren knew that the discovery of the humans, with their gigantic starships and wormhole generators, was exactly what the Galaxy needed to turn the tide of the war. She needed to get back and report this new race to Fleet Command. She was jolted back to reality by a human shouting at her in that staccato language they had, full of fricatives and harsh consonants. Menium spoke to her as the translator, and she was able to get a sanitized and generalized version of what they actually said. Ren didn't think Menium needed to do the voices for different people, though. Still, the point got across. It was time for her to go. Now. Leave? But the checks aren't finished. Does my captain know? She'll need to make preparations. Ren said, worried. No time. Go now. Your ship talked to our ship. They figured it out. The human was hurriedly putting on an armored pressure suit while talking to Ren. Menium said, in their regular voice, through the comm, Longview and I have worked out the details, and I know, mostly, how to operate their wormhole generator. Can you believe they're actually giving us their own FTL drive? The Melateam Command's fur is going to puff out to twice its size when they see it. And Ren said back to Menium, worried. They countered. They have given us enough batteries to run it once, and we should be able to link back to Galax direct. Longview explained how their coordinate system works. I can get us into our system. Ren, this is amazing. I'm talking to an AI from a sapient group that has never made contact. This is so fascinating. Ren hadn't had time to speak to the humans about the other sapient groups they knew, but she had assumed they had met someone. From what Longview told me, we're the first sapient group they've met. You would not believe how surprised they were when the gate activated and we came in. While Ren put on her pressure suit, unfortunately not armored like the humans, she wondered why Menium sounded so excited. They had never exhibited this kind of behavior before. It was more like she was talking with a person instead of the flat, matter-of-fact speech of a ship. As she tightened the last ring on her gloves, she felt, rather than heard, the strikes. Huge booming thumps along the bottom of the human ship, and suddenly her suit shrieked that the pressure was dropping rapidly. Her large inner ears, along with her prehensile tail, gave her a better sense of balance than the humans. She was able to feel Longview start to rotate along its axis. What's going on? She asked Francine, the human that had been helping her thus far. Longview's rolling to keep your ship out of the firing line, Francine said, though Menium's translation. Longview's a big old ship, she can take it, she said, and grinned through her helmet. Old? How old is Longview? Francine stood up and stared off into nothing for a moment. She must be at least 2,000 years old at this point, she said and moved her head up and down vertically once. Yes, about 2,000 years old. 2,000. Not as far as I am able to figure out, Nren. She said 2,000 years. Even if our years, and theirs, are vastly different, Longview is still at least 10 times older than any of our ships. Another brace of explosions rippled down the hull, knocking everyone off balance. Francine put her hand on Enren's shoulder and pushed. Go, now! There was another explosion, this one larger. Run! As Enren ran down the halls of the Longview, Menium reminded her to run on the right side of the hall as humans, all in pressure. Suits ran with purpose around her. She noticed that more than a few humans were carrying weapons. Enren asked her ship. Menium said, What? The Zeni don't do that. The idea of humans forcibly docking with an enemy ship and pouring in, attacking, gave Enren chills. She made a mental note to report this to the Mela team. Nren made it to the umbilical that connected the two ships. There was a group of humans bustling around the docking room, checking settings and tossing crates through the umbilical towards Menium. A human engineer noticed her arrival and waved her over. Nren, your ship is ready. Our ship taught your ship how to work the wormhole generator and we're ready to set you off and escape. He gestured towards the umbilical as he spoke. We're going to push you with the docking arms, so don't hesitate to fire your main drive. Our hull is thick. Your drive exhaust will be barely a summer breeze to us. We'll be fine. He grinned and stepped back. What about you? What are you going to do? She asked. Oh, Longview is very old. She was a star jumper before we developed wormhole generators. She's practically more engine that ship. We'll turn our star drive on them as they come around. No worries. What did that mean? She wondered. Aloud, she said, Sorry, I meant your wormhole generator. Aren't we taking it? Impossibly, the engineer grinned harder. Oh no, we bottled a message and used the generator to link a beacon back to human space. Someone will come and bring us a new generator in a week or two. We'll be fine. More explosions racked the ship. The engineer's grin fell as the ship began to vibrate worryingly. Go, we'll be fine, but if you hold up much longer, there won't be any ship left. He clapped her suited shoulder and gently directed her towards her ship. I'm glad we met. Go and tell your people. Back on the command deck of Longview, the ship was relaying information to Captain Erlatan. Captain, Menium has been pushed away, and they're boosting away from us at their full speed. A small group of attacking ships has peeled off and is giving chase. Suddenly, there was a blinding flash and Menium was gone. It looks like Menium figured out the wormhole generator, Captain Erlatan said. Excellent. Longview, shall we shake off our attackers? With pleasure, Captain. Permission to engage war emergency power and thrust at 6 GEs for 3 minutes? Permission granted. I authorize you to use war emergency power. In the case I am incapacitated, you are free to make your own decisions to continue the mission, save the crew, and save your own life in that order. Acknowledge. Acknowledged, Captain. War emergency. Power engaged, fuses and limiters removed. We can operate at WEP for 83 minutes before permanent damage occurs. If someone was watching the battle from a great distance, they would see Longview begin to rotate along the axes of the massive flywheels deep in the center of the ship. Nren didn't even get to see them in the tour. The humans were friendly and accommodating, but they knew that everything they showed her would get reported back. No need to give away all their secrets. Longview oriented itself until the rear of the ship was facing the swarming Zeni ships. Thinking they were turning to run, the Zeni pressed their attack and grouped together to concentrate their fire. When they were a few dozen kilometers away, Longview lit its old relativistic star drive and a jet of pure white, kilometers long, shot out the back as the ship thrust away at a withering 6 Gs. Everyone on board was secured in acceleration couches or command chairs, and while it was very unpleasant, it was over soon enough. Moving too quickly to dodge the jet of pure physics, the Zeni ships were destroyed the instant the torch of exhaust played over their hulls. None survived to report the incident back to the Zeni Consortium. Enjoy another story. Consortium leader Klee Kem stared at the screen, disbelieving. A low-caste member had announced the asteroid's exit from null space, shrieking and gibbering in surprise, and sure enough, radar and telescopes had confirmed that there was indeed an asteroid falling through the atmosphere. "The treachery!" he shouted. "The mammals dare to attack the mighty Anamura with stones! Where is planetary defenses?" His eye stalks were waving around wildly as he scanned the room. This is their role, the thing they have trained their entire careers for, and I am finding them lacking. 3 Anamura towards the back of the room flinched visibly, and they hunched low over their consoles, their carapace clacking against the screens and buttons as they rushed to bring the defenses online. Consortium leader, we are limited by the cuts in last season's budget. Our role was deemed to be surplus to requirements after Eternity offered to take over planetary defenses. And yet, by all account, we are being attacked by the mammals. He swept his larger clawed hand, grandly. Repel this attack, and I will personally request your funding be restored. Do you have enough missiles to destroy it? No, Consortium leader. Even if we did, that would make our problems worse. We'd turn one asteroid into a swarm of destruction. So then, what is your role, planetary defense? You tell me you cannot defend a planet. I am beginning to wonder if your budget cuts are warranted after all. Klee Kem roared. Solutions! Now! The planetary defense officer bristled, his outer carapace lifted up gently to better direct attacks away from his fragile face. Our role, Consortium leader, is to defend Outworld against military attacks. We could handle an entire Doombringer if pressed, but 6 million kilotons of nickel iron is a different thing. We are concentrating our fire on the northern side. We are steering it towards the Southern Ocean, as that area is as yet undeveloped. Consortium leader, another Anamura shouted. Eternity has engaged the asteroid as well. They are concentrating fire where we are. The mammals are attacking their own weapon? Why? Unknown, it is possible that a competing faction launched the attack. Klee Kem's mouth parts stroked his face idly, a stress reaction. If Eternity is trying to assist, then perhaps you are correct that this is not some kind of opening action from them. He stared at the screen, showing the asteroid, fully, a hemisphere of it yellow-hot from the energy weapons directed at it. Glancing down at the radar, it did appear that it was being redirected. How many brothers and sisters will be killed by a strike? Consortium leader? It is impossible. To give an occur, close enough is fine. Computational estimates place the number of dead between 1 and 10,000. Acceptable losses. Barely a town's worth of people. Directing the asteroid to the Southern Ocean really was the best option, given the circumstances. Klee Kem's legs clattered together idly. He was annoyed that planetary defense was right. Time to turn back to the matters at hand. Sensors! What is Eternity doing? Consortium leader. It's odd. One of Eternity's Doombringers engaged the asteroid, but the 2 other ships in system stayed back. We had thought that they were going to engage each other, but that did not happen. 2 others? There are 3 Doombringers in system? Klee Kem began to second-guess his determination that it was not a surprise attack from Eternity. 1 Doombringer was fine, but 3? That's a threat. No, sir. 1 other Doombringer, and a second, unknown type of ship. It loiters at the edge of the system, trying to remain out of the Doombringer's sight. Klee Kem sighed to himself. This was going to be a whole thing. He stood and began to walk out of command. Alert me if they change posture. I am entering my rest period. The pool was warm, salty, and sandy. There were treatises written about whether beach therapy was good or bad. Some stated that remaining close to their birth location was keeping the Anamura back, while others countered that maintaining a link to the past was what kept them strong. Klee Kem didn't particularly feel one way or the other, but he did love sitting in the pool on the sand with an artificial sun overhead. The pool was the only place that Klee Kem could really think. What was Eternity up to? Klee Kem barely knew anything about the mammals that made up Eternity's species. He knew they gave live birth. His abdomen turned at the thought, and he knew that their leader was some kind of cloned person. The Anamura knew about cloning, but other than some academic studies, had dismissed it outright. What he did know was that Eternity was interested in this planet, newly colonized by the Anamura. Eternity had surveyed the planet centuries ago and registered it as another mostly water world, with not enough land for them. That quick dismissal had meant that they had missed the immense mineral wealth under the deep ocean. Kleekum fed lightly on some small sea creatures that were thoughtfully added to the pool. His mouth parts worked to collect and place the small animals to his mouth while he ruminated. Half the time, Eternity was bombastic, threatening military action to gain access to the resources, and the other half, they were conciliatory, willing to make deals, offering to buy the resources on the open market. It was vexing. Either make the deal or don't. That didn't even begin to explain the other faction of humans. They nulled into the system and tried to negotiate the purchase of an entire continent. Anamura Command had laughed outright when Kleekum relayed their request. They were ordered to leave the system, and when they didn't, a Deco-class frigate was dispatched and their ship was destroyed. Kleekum had half wondered if the asteroid was a retaliatory strike from Eternity for the destruction of the interlopers, but this seems not to have been the case. The overhead speaker crackled. "Consortium leader, you asked us to alert you if Eternity changed posture." Kleekum clacked his clawlets irritatedly. It always seemed like emergencies happened when he had a turn with the pool. He stood, the water pouring off his broad body in sheets. "What is it?" "The two Doombringers have connected and initiated a swap of resources." "For this you interrupt my soak?" Kleekum roared. If this was another false alarm. Not only this, consortium leader. While the two ships were connected, we were able to pick up a null field being generated from within one Doombringer and the other ship on the edge of the system. What? Consortium leader, we think they have a way to null very small things ship to ship. I'm coming up. He ordered the sensor data to be replayed 5 times. He had to admit, it certainly did look like they used a very small null drive to bring something from one ship to another. It struck Kleekum as a tremendous waste of resources. If they are moving something from one ship to another, why not dock or use a shuttle? Perhaps they were abducting something, or someone, an officer offered. It would have to be a very high-value target to warrant the expenditure of resources. Kleekum turned back towards the science and technology station. 2 smaller Anamura were bent low over their station. "I am seeing evidence that Eternity can teleport. Did you know about this?" One of them, a younger male with a rather striking black and gold coloring on their carapace, straightened. "No, consortium leader, we were unaware of this development. As far as we know, one cannot shrink a null drive to be portable like that." "Clearly, we are mistaken," Kleekum said darkly. "And now I will have to report back that Eternity once again has gained a technological advantage. I'm sure we can complete another successful technology transfer, just like we have done in the past," the young officer said. "Do not be so sure. Finding another mammal that is physically attracted to an Anamura has proven more difficult than anticipated. I have seen the reports." Kleekum had seen the reports. They were much more lurid than he thought was necessary. His stomach threatened to somersault again. He turned back towards sensors. "What is Eternity doing now?" The third ship nulled away, and then shortly after the 2 Doombringers left as well. We are alone again. "What of the debris cloud?" Kleekum sat down in his chair in command. If we wasn't going to get a turn in the pool, he might as well be appraised of what was transpiring in his system. "The cloud remains moving at around 3/4 of the speed of light. It will exit our system within the next 10 days. Eternity has placed a beacon in the debris stating that it is a memorial and promises grave consequences for grave robbing. Is there anything of value in it?" Kleekum said, and then shook his claw. "No. Even if there was, we do not have a way to accelerate that easily. Why was it going so quickly?" "Unknown, consortium leader, though we have determined that it was the same drive flame we saw a solar cycle ago. This ship was braking to enter our system. We believe that it was an ancient mammal ship from before they developed the null drive." "Canned mammal?" Kleekum said, chuckling. They really did want to do anything to escape their birth, world. I wonder what was wrong with it. Unknown Consortium Leader. Thanks for diving into this story with me. Don't miss out on the next one. Hit that subscribe button, give this video a big thumbs up, and drop a comment below with your thoughts. I'd love to hear what you think.